Welcome to the Ashkar Show, the place where we talk about all the cow poo you all been thinking out loud. Only here we say it. No censorship, no filters. And today's episode, we have the one and only FizzyBublach, the kid. And he's going to be bringing to us a very interesting video. You all been hearing this, it's kind of gone viral, where two UK parliament members came to Israel, were detained by Israel, and then kicked out of the country. And now there's a lot of fuzz around it. So without further ado, Roy, how about you drop the video and we can start watching it?
He's at the centre of another row because on Saturday, two lefty backbench Labour MPs flew to Israel. They were the incredibly obscure Yuan, the MP for Early and Woodley, and the equally obscure Abtisam Mohamed, the MP for Sheffield Central. Now, they arrived there and basically weren't allowed in. They said that they were here as part, this is their quote, part of an official parliamentary delegation from Britain. What they actually wanted to do was to go to the West Bank and sort of sympathize with the Palestinians and talk about humanitarian horrors committed by Israel. So Israel said, well, sorry, we believe that you are here to spread anti-Israel hatred and you're not coming in. So they were turned around. Now, Israel did actually say to this pair of posers, look, you can appeal this decision. We will even pay for a hotel for you in the airport area. But you're not coming in at this stage. So they both get on the plane and they came back and they're now talking about their outrageous treatment.
So it was two MPs from Labour, which are the left party in Britain. One is Yuan, which is a Chinese-British MP, and the other is Abtisam Mohamed. Abtisam Mohamed, yeah. And they both
perfumes. That's like you translate.
And they both are very anti-Israel, very pro-Gaza, pro-Hamas, let's say, because a lot of the stuff that they said are not just for the Palestinians, but they really spread Hamas propaganda, amplifying their figures, like 50,000 deaths. Israel doesn't give us humanitarian aid, which was a lie, because we all know that Hamas was the one who was stealing the international aid. So, and another thing is that they lied when they came to Israel. Like Kevin said, he said that they said when they came that they were part of a British delegation that was known by the British MPs, by the British government. It wasn't a British delegation. It was a delegation from two groups, Kabu, I think, and the other one is Palestinian humanitarian aid, something like that. They had no real delegation, and they did not say anything prior to coming to Israel. Before you come as a politician, before you come to another democratic party, you need to state your visit. You need to say that you're coming.
Yeah, I would say even more. Before a country sends ambassadors or parliament members to go as delegation, they coordinate with the other government. There's approvals. Here's a clear case where they were using their, government IDs to come and promote terrorism. And when would the people in UK wake up and realize that they've been infiltrated and they are being taken advantage of? These ladies are literally taking advantage of the role to promote, I don't know if it's Chinese communist or pro-Palestinian jihadist propaganda, using their tools. And that's what they're doing. They're taking a country and then they're using it to promote jihadist and communist ideas. And it's just insane. It's happening everywhere. And they're trying to do that in the US, by the way, and in Germany. But anyway.
And Kemi said quite well, I thought, unlike China, Israel is our ally and a democracy. A good foreign secretary would be able to make that distinction.
Absolutely. I mean, it's naive and it's stupid. It's stupid and it's entitled. How dare they go to a sovereign democratic country and regard themselves having a right to be there to speak against that same sovereign country. And I mean, our government should take a lead from the fact that actually you can detain and deport people. Maybe if they'd gone there in a dinghy, they would have got other treatment. But the other thing I think worth just touching on is their preparedness to liken China to Israel. And of course, we all know that China is effectively a communist totalitarian regime and Israel is a democracy and an ally. But the fact that they don't know the difference intuitively and in their gut, that they don't feel that Israel is more like us than China is, tells you how completely hijacked their ideology is.
Well, but Ben, these people hate Israel. These people are classic left-wing Labour MPs. They hate Israel.
Absolutely.
They absolutely hate Israel.
And what about all the Uyghur Muslims? You know, they talk about Muslim rights and Islamophobia and the persecution of Muslims by Israel in Gaza, etc. The Chinese are persecuting millions of Muslims, have done so for decades. No one seems in our government to give a damn. We'll continue to have free trade with China. We'll continue to import their tat, made often by slave labor, made often by industry that's powered by coal power rather than by renewables. And we'll turn a blind eye to all of that. And yet when a country enforces its sovereign right to protect itself, these people are all up in arms. It's a complete joke.
So this was an article by the BBC about Mohammed Khalil, the Palestinian student, who was doing the same thing basically in the US. He was promoting jihad, Hamas, and the rallies, anti-Jew in the campuses, and etc. And a lot of Americans are going now, free Mahmoud, free speech. The guy here in the show said, naive. I would not call these girls naive. I would not call Mohammed Khalil naive. I would not call any of these jihadists or communists who have infiltrated the West and they infiltrated academia, the media, the government. They're not naive. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're promoting. And these girls coming to Israel and trying to do what they did in the UK so successfully, to undermine Israel and promote jihadists. Luckily, Israel is not behaving like America or like the UK, and they know where to put their boundaries. Get out of here. We don't want you. You're supporting terrorism, you're supporting October 7. That is a clear indicator of people you don't want to have in your country. It's just kind of mind-blowing. Question is, like, I've watched a video lately and a documentary about when will the UK turn to become a caliphate? And they said in the next, 40 years, I think they're being very generous with that offer. I think even before. But what would happen when the UK become a nuclear caliphate? What would the world do then? You see, these people are pushing for very dangerous ideology, very dangerous takeover of Western civilization. And you have places like the UK where they're not representing the minority anymore. They're representing a relatively big majority. That's why they got elected. That's why they're in the government. And now they're trying to help and promote this genocidal jihadist ideology all around the world. What a disgrace. What a disgrace.
Look, I'm a little bit more optimistic than you, because I think the more that they will keep talking about foreign affairs, those MPs are not, they're representative of very small areas in England. And those small areas live real people with real problems, like garbage disposal, like immigration. They want those problems to be fixed. Right now, what do you have? You have two MPs that are not talking about those problems. They're looking for problems in another country, in a different world, in a different, like, there's no connection. There's nothing that connects between Gaza, West Bank, and Britain. The only thing that they're doing is that they're playing, and I agree with you, they are not naive. They know that what they're doing is playing into the hands of the Muslim voters. But even them, in the end, I think they will start to understand that they cannot keep voting only on the basis of their religion. They will win. They will.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic. I'm just trying to be optimistic.
Yeah, I know, and it's good to be optimistic, but I don't think it's that optimistic. You see, the way that the Nazis, the communists, and the jihadists, the way that they take over a country, when they realize that they can't take it by force, they say, we're going to take it from inside. And the first thing they do is they try to rob this nation out of masculinity, rob this nation out of the main threat, which is strong men and women, but mostly usually strong men that will come and stop them if they come and try to take over. Second step is they start targeting the younger generation, political correctness and shaming and cancel culture. What happens in the UK, we see a prime example of that. UK was once a nation of knights and strong people, SAS and I don't know what, and bar fighters, are right now watching how people are going and sexually assaulting their daughters, migrants, and they're doing nothing. Even more, the police there is is playing the same game. The police there is going arresting old ladies for making tweets that might be offensive towards Muslim, while they're allowing radical Muslims drives in the streets with cars and shouting stuff like, kill the Jews, beep their daughters. I'm not going to use the words, out of censorship, but we've all seen these videos. No one got arrested there. So you cripple a nation that they can't think for themselves. They're afraid to think for themselves. They're afraid to voice out their concerns about the things that you talked about the garbage, about the economy, about the school system, about the education, anything. They're afraid to talk. And then you empower the radicals to go and take over until the point where right now I think there's about 8 Muslim mayors in the UK. And you have parliament members and et cetera, et cetera. And when I'm saying Muslim, there's not a problem if you're a Muslim and you're part of the country and you're supporting the country and you're helping that country progress to a better place. But when you are a Muslim that supports jihad, that supports taking down democracy, then you should not be in the government. You should not. That's like a no-brainer. That's a very, very simple understanding of geopolitics.
Yeah, that's the thing. That what you're saying right now about being a Muslim and being part of the country. The guest that he was talking with in the show that we were seeing, his name is Ben Habib. Ben Habib is a Muslim. He is a very known. He is a scholar. He knows what he's talking about, and he is a very big prominent of reform Islam. He is about reforming the bad, taking the bad, and keeping the good. And he has spoken before, even in Harvard and other universities, about how important it is that Judaism, Christianity, and other religions have reformed themselves. And Islam is next in line and has to be reformed. And he says that we need, as British Muslims, to be loyal to our country and loyal to our laws and rules. And
that's why I understand you, and I think these people their voice should be amplified and encouraged, because that's the way for Islam to move forward. The only problem is I just don't see Islam doing that. They're saying they want to move Islam have to change, and it's gonna change. I don't know. If you look at it, that's the problem with Islam, because it's a newer religion. And it kind of, sealed itself against any other interference that might help change Islam, in comparison to Judaism and Christianity, which are always adapting and changing, to the newest reality that we're living in. In Islam, most Muslims see the Sharia law way above any man-made law. Sharia law is given by God to the Prophet, by an angel in a cave, in a dark cave, and man-made law was just invented by politicians, by humans, and that's not important. So second, third, fourth generations, the majority of Muslims in Europe that are living, they still would choose any day Sharia law over the local law. Even the ones that you'll consider as moderate, even the ones that you'll say, yeah, they live in my neighborhood, they're very peaceful. The question is, when the time comes and they need to choose, the mob that is chanting Allahu Akbar in the streets and just, inciting themselves, and in a second they can just, explode and go and start committing, acts of violence, or are they gonna stand with the Christian and European and Western values? Most likely they'll choose Sharia law. Either go with it, full on support it, or we'll just sit as bystanders and let it do. And that is a problem that if the West doesn't wake up and deal with, then the West is doomed.
I think that's something that we need to discuss about, because there are levels of, like in every religion, you have different religious groups inside of that religion. And also in Islam, you have different religion groups. You have people who are cultural Muslims, but they don't really believe or anything, or they're not really following the Sharia or the Quran. And I think that those people are more prone to be open-minded and listen. There are still big groups of them being tribal, and that's okay. We Jews, you Druze, everybody are tribal. We protect our own. We love our own a little bit more, and they are also, they love their own fellow Muslims. But I think that they also can be critical of the bad parts of Islam when they are faced with it.
They can't. It's hard. I tell you what, there is several Jews living in Europe. I know some of them. We're kind of keeping to our own. We meet here and there, but very rarely. In the town that I'm living in, there's several Jews that are living here. Each one holds a different political opinion. We meet here and there just to eat falafel and hummus, but if one of them chooses to go and speak, let's say, against Bibi, none of the others would care. If one of them would go and choose to speak pro-Bibi, none of the others will care. If one of them will decide to turn religious, if one of them decides that he want to eat mac and cheese all day and just bathe in a bowl of shrimps and lobsters, none of the other Jews will care. None of the other Druze will care. I know a lot of Muslims here in Europe that they, on a conversation one-to-one, they tell we're ex-Muslims. We don't believe in that anymore. But outside, they're full-on Muslims. I had a few that came to my podcast and, brought the most interesting, mind-blowing, recalling of what's happening in Syria, what's happening in Morocco and Yemen and all kind of places. And then they contacted me later and said, listen, I can't put this video, please. And I said, of course, I'm going to respect you. And I said, but can you tell me why? He says, there's still a lot of Muslims in this town, in this community here that know me. And if I'll do this, I'm sentencing myself to death. That's Europe for you. You know how crazy that is? So I don't see yet, I'm seeing attempts to push Islam by this guy and others that are trying to push to a better future. And these are the ones that I hope that it will win. Some countries, Saudi Arabia, in some ways are trying to do that. The Emirates, which supposedly, they're supposed to be very peaceful countries, sometimes even more peaceful than the West. And they have rules that the West don't have. For example, they don't allow Al Jazeera. They don't allow pro-Palestine in these countries because they know what's going to happen. But even though they're still not pushing the train of Islam with the progress to the future, as we see. We can say that Israel is pushing the train of Judaism right now. Yes, you have cults here and there, weirdos. You have some really weird Jewish cults in South America that were caught doing some crazy stuff, pedophilia. You have weird Jews that go to meet in Iran and they're like full-on pro-Palestine and radical jihadist genocide.
Yeah,
the train. They're not the one driving the train. There's kind of bystanders, if just hanging on the train, kind of trying to stay there and influence it. In Islam, it's the other way around. It's literally pushing Islam towards a very devastating. Look at Turkey. Turkey is now going full-on radical jihadist Muslim Brotherhood, promoting it. And I have a lot of Turkish friends. I have a lot of Turkish friends that don't like it. But how many times did it try revolution? It's not working. And not only that, it's like playing a chess game against a player who's a cheater. Every time that the table shakes, your players fall down, he will not let you put the players back and go back to where it was. He will continue how he was. So every time you have a revolution like this in these countries, what happens is they lose players and never get them back because they get executed, disappear, tortured. Same thing in Iran. You cannot.
I love how you picture stuff. I just love how your mind works in very mysterious ways. Like after you die, somebody needs to dissect your brain and needs to understand how it works.
It's gonna look like a psychedelic trip for someone, but yeah, it's like cartoons jumping around, kind of
a monkey doing.
Mushroom comes out and the story comes out of it. Yeah, exactly. But my point is, it's right now impossible almost for Muslim countries and Muslim communities to actually change the tide of war that Islam is pushing and pull it towards a peaceful tide because it is so easy to eliminate the opposition. While in the West, we're protecting the opposition. You want to keep them. That's one of the signs of a great democracy. When you allow, even though if you're a government that is extremely left or right, you should allow the other side and encourage it to have the power to speak. Otherwise, you're doomed. They don't have that. That is
I
kind of
think,
I'm more skeptical.
yeah, I know, I understand, and I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not saying it's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years. I am saying that as long as you still see those people who are trying to fight from the inside of Islam, and trying to reform it and trying to bring it to a better place, you need to call out those people, amplify them, and help them in their cause. That's what I'm saying. And even if it's a futile effort, still would some people will follow them from the inside, and will follow what they say, what they preach, and they will branch out. And
Yeah.
little by little, you can see that there will be a different branch of Islam. And I don't know if it's a majority, but I know it's going to happen, because even in the Middle East, we know that everybody is saying, oh, 2 billion Muslim, 2 billion Muslims. Everybody knows that the numbers are not true. A lot of those Muslims are ex-Muslims. They just don't say it. They cannot say it.
Yeah. Most Muslims that you see today were just, a few generations of Christianity or Judaism or any other religion that was just, colonized, genocide, and converted by force. Their ancestors will be rolling in their grave. But, if I was Islam, and one of the biggest fears that I will have is ex-Muslims that will come and expose and speak out against the crimes that are happening under Islam. Hassan Mas'ab, son of Hamas. There's a guy named Mansour here. He's an Israeli, I think Palestinian or Israeli Muslim that lives in Germany. I've never met him before, but he's like very brave in how he's talking. So they go out, they start talking, and that kind of shakes the foundation. So you know how Islam kind of targeted these people? It's very interesting. They say we need to shake the ground under their feet. Who's given the platform? Usually it's the left, sometimes the right. So let's infiltrate the left and make all the left kind of become so wacko weird. And that's why a lot of times the left are the one who are promoting jihadist and communist ideas. And then when these guys speak, the left is not going to back them up. The right, a lot of time, is not very friendly towards migrants. So in general, that's like, and it's also a much harder shell to crack. The right, in America and in Europe, they're kind of a bit over the top sometimes. So it's harder to target them, but let's target the left. They're so open and receptive to weird ideas that they can be easily manipulated. And then they will be on our side. And then these ex-Muslims, no one is going to listen to them. If I go here in Germany and talk, they will call me an Islamophobe. I have Iranian friends, first generation, who just, actually fled from Iran. Zero generation, I don't know how you call that. And no one want to listen to them. No one want to listen to them, regardless of the crazy things that are telling. They mentioned there's something very interesting. They mentioned like in China, the genocide that is happening for the Muslim community in China.
Yeah, the Uyghurs.
The Uyghurs, yeah. Why is no one talking about that? What happened? Why are they only talking about Palestine?
There were a few times that people were talking about it.
Why do you think that all the Muslim world is only talking about Palestine, not talking
Oh,
about
that's for sure, because they don't care about them. They don't really care about. They for them it's a religious war. That's what I'm saying. It's a one-sided religious war against anybody who is not a Muslim, but especially against the Jews, especially against Israel, because Israel is like a sore thumb in the eyes of Muslims. I'm not saying Islam, I'm saying in the eyes of Muslims, because I think that a lot of countries a lot of Muslim countries saw that part of the Middle East, Israel, as their own. It's part of their own country. It's part of their own pan-Arabism dream. And the day that the Jews reclaimed it, that was like, how could have we missed it? How could have we lose it? And they don't care if it's a centimeter of sand or if it's miles and miles of land. In the end, the moment that this conquering mentality of establishing itself in every place possible, the day that they lost that land, it was like, okay, we need to regroup, we need to fight this, and they lose. and they lost again and again and again. And
Yep.
some countries learned. They said, okay, if we can fight them, join them, right? Some countries said, all right, it's let's leave it be. Like Egypt, they don't like us, but they're not attacking us. Jordan, the same thing. They don't like us, but they're not attacking us. And some are just like, no, we need to fight till the end. We need to fight, alhamdulillah, inshallah, like Palestine.
You nailed it there when you said the moment Islam will abandon its dream to conquer the world, then we're going to start seeing Islam living alongside. And that is exactly the point that is making it so difficult. You see, anything right now that helps Islam conquer the world, they're all rallying behind it. Anything that doesn't help or is not relevant right now, they don't care. They don't care about the genocide that is happening in Syria towards the Syrian by the Syrian Muslim government. They don't care about what's happening in China. It's not relevant. What's happening in Israel, that is promoting them. Because once they have Israel, once they have Jerusalem, once they have the Holy Land, because the Quran talks about it, then that's a first step of establishing the Caliphate over the world. You see, Muhammad, the Nabi, God, Allah, he's with us. And once they have that, then there's going to go the next is going to be Southern Europe, Northern Africa. Then it's going to be all of Europe, all of Africa. Meanwhile, working in America, working in China, working on Russia. So the goal is to conquer the world. And that is right now a problem, while many, many Muslims still aspire for that goal. Many, many Muslims that lives among you still aspire for that goal. They go and they pray. Have you seen that, in the prayers in the mosque? It's a very interesting prayer. Every time in the end of a prayer, do you know what they do?
They curse the Jews and the Christians.
Yeah, they curse anyone who's not Muslim, basically. Why? Because the goal is, Islam, and then curse all the others who are not Islam. So when that is a teaching that you're teaching in the mosques, and that is a teaching in mosque in Europe, we're not talking about the Middle East. Some countries in the Middle East stopped doing that because they realize how damaging, but in Europe and the US, it's still on steroids. Then you have a serious problem. Serious problem.
Do you think you have mosques like that saying that in Israel?
In the majority Muslim villages, some of them in Mthallath and other in the triangle, probably yes. Most of them don't.
So the majority are not, but some in the especially in the villages. Okay.
Yeah. Probably, yeah. But they still will keep it discreet because the Shabak will be on it and etc. Something very interesting that I've seen right now, it was a Muslim holiday in Israel right now. And there were a lot of Muslims, celebrating in Eilat. And I just came from Israel. And it was beautiful. I saw them in the beach and I saw them, in the mall. And, it made me happy to see, that they're going around while what's happening to Muslims around the Middle East. They're going here shopping with their kids, doing the carousel. And my kid was playing with their kids and etc. And a very good friend of mine, relative of mine, he actually is a Nova survivor who's working in a hotel. And he was telling me there's a lot of Muslims right now in the hotel because of the holiday. And I asked him, so what's happening there? So, well, first of all, it's very loud and there's a lot of trash. That's he was just being kind of direct and honest. And then he said, but Mansour, they're afraid. You can see that they're very afraid. And that fear is making them right now behave much better. Interesting. I said, what do you mean? He says, usually when they would come here in the holiday, there will be a lot of fighting, a lot of violence, a lot of, gang fights and etc. But now they're afraid because the moment that one of them will just go Allahu Akbar aggressive, someone might think that he's a terrorist and take him down. So he said, you can see that many of them are really kind of afraid after what happened October 7 because what they saw Israel's reaction. Which brings me to the point again, in the Middle East, when you act strongly against radical values, all the radicals start behaving. And I don't encourage or I don't want people to be afraid, but people who want to do bad stuff should definitely be afraid. And I think that's it was a very kind of complicated kind of statement that he said, but I was trying to see what can I take from that. And that is, I wish that all Israel would live in peace and no one need to be afraid. But also, I think it's a good wake-up call for the Muslim world, also in Israel. Change your ways. Start adapting more ways of peace rather than violence, more ways of tolerance rather of racism. And
I think it's tying nicely to the point that Ben Habib said on those two MPs, and about how Keir Starmer should learn from it. How just Britain should learn from it, because in the end, what did Israel do? They stopped somebody, terrorist supporters, to come to their land. I'm sorry. Is it like, if we look at it, like, emotion aside, it's a democratic value. It's a democratic it's not democratic. It's by law. It's allowed by, like, every nation, every democratic nation can
force that.
No, but they can. Sometimes Britain did that as well. Sometimes Australia and the United States did that as well.
The US is trying to do it right now by deporting all these pro-Palestine demonstrators.
Yeah, but we're talking about even the politicians. Even a politician doesn't have a right to come and do willy-nilly whatever he wants, right? It's not just...
Especially a politician should not have that.
Especially if he's lying and saying that he's on a special delegation. So I think that if we're looking at what Israel is doing, people need to learn from Israel. People need to learn. And again, I'm agreeing with you. People shouldn't be afraid. People who have nothing to be afraid of shouldn't be afraid. We don't want that in our country, but we do want safer borders. We do want less crime and less terrorism. And that's what they should learn.
Yeah, I think soon enough, as we're going to see radical Islam getting bigger in Europe and getting bigger in the US, they will start realizing that they, instead of condemning Israel about how they're dealing with the situation, they're going to start to have to learn from Israel. We've seen that when it happened to counterterrorism. Back in the past, they used to always kind of condemn Israel, and now they're all sending their specialists to come here and learn. I've trained with many of these specialists that came from Europe because they came to learn from us how to counter terrorism. And I think now they're going to start sending their politicians, if they want to save themselves, and start learning from Israel, how can you deal with Islam and coexist? Because Israel, if you ask me, I feel safer as an Arab in Israel, way safer than in Europe. Because Israel actually treats Arabs better than in Europe. We're talking about the peaceful ones. The problem in Europe that they're actually very nice to the radical ones. And in Israel, you feel safe because the rules are being followed. It's very clear. If you do this, that's wrong. If you do this, that's right. In Europe and in America, it's just so easy to manipulate the system and keep promoting these things. So I think they're going to start sending people right now to learn from Israel also how to govern a country that is not Muslim while allowing Muslims to live in that country freely, but eliminating the threat that Muslims will try to come and destroy and take over that country and bring Sharia law. I think that's a very interesting.
I agree with you.
Well, anyway, Roy, do you have anything else to say before we finish?
No, I think we're good.
All right. Thank you guys for hanging on. As I always remind, if you want to help this channel keep growing so we can keep giving you the best content that we can, go and do the like, subscribe, share, the whole shebang. Go and check the Patreon. I'm too lazy. I don't have time to edit it. But go and check the Patreon. It's in the title, and you can find direct ways to support my channel. And if you want to have a coffee mug of the face of FizzyBublach on it, leave it in the comment, and we'll see if there's enough comments. Maybe we'll make you one. But until then, guys, stay safe and don't do anything stupid. In general, just don't do anything that I would do. See you next time.